Welcome back to the course on digital logic and computer architecture. In last class, we have seen some of the issues of our computer, and basically currently I am just introducing those particular terms, and in this course we are going to discuss about those particular issues while we are going to discuss for a particular principle. Okay. So, in last class we have seen that working principle is basically von Neumann's stored program principle. So, what will happen? We have to store our program and process is going to work on those particular stored information. So, stored information we need main memory, this is one component, and after that will be processed. So, for that we have this particular ALU, arithmetic and logic unit, which are the primitive operation that we can perform in our processor, and generally ALU is implemented in hardware. We have a control unit for interpreting the instruction for memory and executing it, and along with that we have input and output equipments, so that we can provide input to our processor and we can get the result, and this is called IAS model or Institute for Advanced Studies of Princeton Institute, and it is proposed by von Neumann. Okay. Now, this is the structure of von Neumann architecture. We have seen that this is the storage area, main memory, ALU and program control unit, and we can already mention that this can be treated as a closed system and it can work with the CPU or central processing unit can work with the contents of this particular main memory. Now, to get the information or data into the main memory or giving the result to the user from the processor or from the computer, then we need I/O equipment, input output equipment. Alright. So, this is the way that we are going to view the structure of von Neumann machine. So, if you are now going to look into the internal structure, then we are going to get these components. Basically, inside your CPU we have some storage element, these are called registers. We have that ALU, arithmetic and logic unit, where we are going to perform some arithmetic and Boolean logic operation. Along with that we may have some component called a shifter, complementer, and one of the component that we have as status flags. We will see what are those particular status flags. Okay. And to have the communication between this process ALU and the registers, we have to transfer information. So, we need the communication link. So, for that we are having this particular internal CPU bus. Okay. And what operation we are going to perform, we have to give the appropriate indication, and those indication will be given by my control signals, and those control signals will be generated by this particular control unit, and that will be transferred through this particular communication channel known as control paths. So, basically you just see we are having two kind of data transfer bus inside your processor. One is called say data bus. Through this data bus we are going to transfer the data from one point to the other point, or second one is it is your control path or control bus. So, through this particular control bus we transfer the control signal from one point to the other point. Alright. Now, what we used to do or what we are going to do with our computers, we are going to solve some problems, and for that you know that we are going to write computer programs. So, what is a programs? It is nothing but a sequence of steps, or you can say this is the sequence of instruction, and instruction basically comes from the instruction set of a particular machine. That means we can perform only those particular operation in our machines or in our computer. Now, for each step an arithmetic or logical operation is done. Already I said that in ALU what will happen, we are having some basic operation which is implemented in hardware. So, we are going to use those particular operation So, basically we are saying that either we are going to do some arithmetic or logical operation. For each operation different set of control signals are needed. So, this control signal will transfer through this particular control port. So, we say these are the control signals and we have to generate the appropriate control signals at appropriate time. Okay. So, this is a program and we are going to execute our program in a computer. Now, in last class also I have mentioned about this instruction cycle. So, the very basic one can be viewed as a 2 steps for instruction cycle. So, what are these 2 steps? One is your fetch and second one is execute. So, already we said that our computer works on von Neumann stored program principle. We are storing our information in some memory. That means, if I say that I am having a storage element and we say that this is your say memory, then what will happen? In this memory we may store my programs that I am going to execute it, and I may store data that we are going to work with those particular data. Now, in fetch phase we are going to bring the, say in the program it is nothing but a sequence of instructions. So, we are going to bring the instruction from memory to the processor or CPU. So, this is the fetch. When we get this information over here, then now processor is to perform this particular task depending on the instruction that we fetch, and we say while going to perform this operation, then we say this is the execute phase. So, in a program it is a sequence of instructions. So, we are fetching it, executing it, then again we go back, fetch and execute till the last instruction, and if the last instruction is a stop or halt instruction, that processor is going to halt at that particular point. So, this is the way we can visualize it. So, in this simple example I am saying that the instruction cycle can have 2 steps, fetch and execute, but later on we will see that we can have different steps also, more steps also instead of only 2. Okay. And already I think I have talked about these things in the last class. When we fetch an instruction, it may happen that we are not having the data in my processor or inside the processor, means inside the storage element in registers, then again we have to get it from the memory. So, this will go as indirect cycles. Okay. Sometimes it may happen that this is again not in the main memory, but we have to get it from some input output devices. Okay. Maybe all of you know that hard disk is an input output device. All we have hard disk in our computer. So, if it is not there, then we are going to get it from the hard disk. We said this is the interrupt cycle. Okay. So, it will come out from this particular mode of execution of the program, and it is going to run an routine, which we can say it is an interrupt service routine, and it is going to perform our job. Now, I can give a simple scenario over here. Just say that in your computer we are running a media player. Okay. So, that media player software is loaded into the memory and it is executing, say fetch, then execute, like that. And to get this particular data, say some of the data we are having in our main memory, but the size of this particular movie file is a bigger one, which cannot be accommodated or which cannot be transferred to our main memory in one go. Okay. So, when we are trying to get some more data, we will feel that it is not in our main memory. That means, we have to bring it from the hard disk. So, in that particular case, this interrupt cycle will come into picture. It will stop the current execution. Okay. Now, it is going to run another program. We say this is the service routine or device server routine, and with the help of this service routine we are going to bring some more part of the movie file to this particular main memory. Then again my media player is going to take it from this particular main memory. So, for that reason we are having this particular interrupt cycle. So, in the due course of time we are going to discuss about the handling such type of interrupters. Okay. So, this is the structure already we have seen. Now, this structure can be, now we will see how we are going to execute a program. So, what are the steps that is required. So, this is the top level view of our components of a computer, and in this particular components or computer, basically what we have this particular CPU, central processor unit, we have this main memory, and along with that we have this IO modules. Okay. Now, since it works on stored program principle, so we are going to keep our instruction in main memory, or we can say this is the program. These instructions are going to use some data, so we are going to keep this data in main memory, and this processor is going to fetch this information from this particular main memory, bring it inside the processor, and it is going to process the job. And how we are going to get this information, say how I am going to load this program or data into main memory. For that we need input output devices. So, those input output devices will be connected through this particular IO module. We will say it is an input output module. So, now these three components, CPU, main memory and IO module will connected through this particular system bus. Okay. So, through this system bus we are going to transfer information. Now, when we are going to look into the CPU, we are saying that we have some information called MAR, MBR, IOAR and IOBR, and here I am saying PC and IR. Okay. So, basically what I am saying that these are the some components we are having inside the processor, and currently I am going to say that these are the 6 components that we have mentioned over here. These are the 6 components. These are nothing but the registers or storage element. PC is called program counter, IR instruction register, MAR memory address register, MBR memory buffer register, IOAR input output address register, and IOBR input output buffer registers. And in some cases, instead of 4 we may have only 2, that MAR and input output address register may be combined together and we may use 1. Similarly, MBR and IOBR can be combined together, we may use 1 register. We will see the purpose of those registers and why we require those registers. We are going to discuss about all those issues. Now, this is the way you can say that these IO devices and main memory will be connected to the system bus, and if you look into the system bus, then what we are going to get, it is having 3 components. One is your address bus, data bus and control bus. When we talk about the address bus, that we are going to transfer address to this address bus, then what is address, we are going to talk about it. Data bus, we know that we are going to work on some data, then those data will be transferred through this particular data bus, and processor is going to give some control signals to the connected devices, and those signals will be transferred through this particular control bus, and all these 3 will be combined together, and we said this is the system bus. Now, what is a bus? It is nothing but a communication pathway connecting 2 or more devices. Okay, it is a communication pathway, and usually it is broadcast. Okay, and often we group some of those particular communication pathway together, and we say this is these are a channel of one particular bus. So, as for example, if we are going to talk about a 32-bit bus, then what will happen? We are going to get 32 different single bit channels. So, 32 channels will be there, single bit channel. So, these are the connecting wire or channel. We are going to say this is for the signal line 0, signal line S1 and say signal line 31. So, combining these together, I will say that this is your 32-bit data bus. So, through this particular data bus, we can transfer 32-bit of information in one go. Okay. So, this is the concept of bus. So, what is the advantage of bus system? Okay, here what will happen? You can say that multiple devices may be connected to a bus and transfer data between devices through this particular bus. So, as for simple example, I will say that I am having 3 components and 3 devices. If I am going to transfer information between 3 devices or 3 components, say this is your D1, D2 or say D3. Then to transfer information between your D1 and D2, we need one communication channel. To transfer information between D2 and D3, we need another communication channel. Okay. To transfer between information D3 and D1, we need another communication. Then only we can transfer any information from any device to any other device. Now, say here I am getting for 3 devices, we are getting 3 different buses. Now, if we are going to increase this particular devices, say if we are having n devices, then you can imagine how many communication channel we will be needing, because we have to give the provision that we can transfer information from any device to any device. So, if I am having n devices, then what will happen? I should have n minus 1 channel between D1 and say remaining n minus 1 channel. So, then only D1 can transfer information to all other channels. Similarly, if you look into D2, again from D2 we should have similar number of channels, but it will be now n minus 2, because already from D1 to D2 we have this particular channel. So, like that if you go into it, then you will find that it will be some sort of a factorial n number of channels will be required. So, we can reduce all those things by using the concept of bus. So, if we are going to have a bus concept, say I am going to use a communication bus. Now, that devices will be connected through this particular communication. Now, like that devices will be connected to this particular bus. Okay. Now, by looking into this provision or this communication channel, what we are getting, at any point of time we can transfer only one information from one particular device to another device, or maybe from one particular device to multiple devices, if we are going to transfer this information to the multiple devices. But 2 different kind of communication cannot be performed simultaneously. Okay. But in the first case where I am saying separate bus, in many cases we can transfer the information parallelly. So, this is one advantage, but it will be very complex one. But when I am coming to the bus concept or bus system, in this particular case we are going to get a simplified system where complexity is less, but maybe slightly compromising on performance, because we cannot do parallel transfer in this particular bus system. So, we have discussed or just given some idea about the bus system and why you are going to use bus system and what is the advantage of using this particular bus system. Now, we said that we are having 3 kind of bus. Out of that, one is your data bus. So, through data bus we are going to transfer the data from one point to the other point, or we can say from source to destination. But here it says that remember that there is no difference between data and instruction at this level, because everything will be treated as your signal value either high or low, but we are transferring it. Though I am saying that I am transferring data, basically it says that we are transferring even instruction also, which can be also treated as data, which is a combination of bit stream 0s and 1. And it is a key determinant of the performance. Say if I am going to talk about, say, width of the data bus is 8, that means we can transfer only 8 bit of information at one point of time. If it is a 32 bit, then we can transfer 32 bit of information in one go. Now, why we are saying that it is the determinant of the performance? Say consider a processor. Now, we talk about that your processor is your 32 bits. Okay. Then what will happen in this particular case? Say if I am having a data bus of 32 bits or 32 channels, then what will happen? All these 32 bits can be transferred in one go. But I am saying that the processor is 32 bit, but my data bus is 8 bits. So, in that particular case, what we can do to transfer this particular 32 bit of information, we have to transfer it in 4 different times, 8 bits at a time. So, 8 4s are 32. So, we need 4 different steps to transfer the same 32 bits of information if the size of my data bus is 8 bits. So, you just see, if I am having a bigger data bus, say if I am having a 32 bit data bus, then all those 32 bits can be transferred in one go. Okay. So, these are the issues that we have. Now, address bus. So, what is an address? Since we are talking about the address, so basically now if we are going to take some information from a particular point, I have to identify that particular component, device, or maybe location. That means we have to provide an address to my source, and if I am going to put this information in some other component or device or location, I said that this is the destination. So, I have to identify the destination also. So, how we are going to do it? We are going to use this particular addressing scheme. We will see how we are going to do it, and you know that what address means. Through address I can locate something. Now, say if I want to locate you, then how I am going to locate you? First of all, I know your name, then I will be knowing that you are staying in a hostel, maybe say Lohit Hostel. Then where this Lohit Hostel is? It is in IIT Guwahati campus. Where is IIT Guwahati? It is in Assam, India. So, if I know all those components, that I can locate you and I can go to you. So, similarly, if I am going to look for a particular data, I have to find out the address of the location where we have kept this particular data. Now, we are going to discuss about those addressing scheme also. So, to provide this address, we need this particular address bus. Okay. Here one example, it says that 8080 has 16 bit address bus giving 64K address space. We will see what is this particular address, what is this particular address space, and 8080, it is a processor, actually Intel processor that nowadays you are using Pentium or say i3, i5. So, this is the earlier processor which is your saying about 8080. So, it has having an address space of 64K, and it says that it uses 64 bit of address bus. We will come to this particular point once we discuss about the address. Okay. And control bus, I am saying that processor is going to generate some control signal. If this control signal is coming out from the processor and going to connect to some other devices, then it will go through this particular control bus. So, one simple example, we are talking about say memory read and write signals. Now, what basically we have in this particular von Neumann stored program principle, we are having this CPU and I am having this particular memory. So, we are going to work with this particular memory model. Sometimes we have to bring the information from memory, then we can say that this is your memory read. Say we are going to have this particular read signal. This read control signal is going to indicate that we have some information in some particular memory location. From that memory location, we are going to bring it inside the processor. Okay. Similarly, I may have another control signal, say write. This write control signal will indicate that whatever information we have in a particular register inside the CPU, that we are going to write it into some other memory location. Okay. So, such type of control signals we are having. Okay. Like that we are having interrupt request, we have clock signal, we are going to discuss all those things. So, we are having some control signals or this timing signals also, all those things will go through this particular control bus. Now, I am saying that I have to bring information from a particular memory in case of read. How to identify this particular memory location? So, for that we need the address, and I am saying that I am going to write something to this particular memory location. That means, again I have to identify this particular memory location, and how we are going to do it with the help of memory address. So, this is now we are going to talk about address of a memory location and data of a memory location. So, basically with the help of simple example I am going to give you. I think I might have talked about these things earlier also. Say I am having a memory, I say if I write basically it says that main memory. Okay. So, in this main memory you just consider that I am having 8 memory location from M0, M1 to say M7. Okay. Now, to identify any one of these location, somehow we have to give that information. Say I am going to work with memory location M0 or memory location Mi. Now, you just say I am having 8 memory location. Okay. So, in this particular case, we know that we are going to distinguish them with the help of your electrical signals, and to identify any one of these 8 location, we can immediately say that we need 3 bits of information. Okay, 3 bits of information or 3 control signals, because these 3 control signals, say if I say this is your C0, C1 and C2, then this value of control signal may be going from all 0 to all 1. Okay. So, this is the way we can look into it. You will see the internal construction of this particular memory later on when we are going to discuss about the memory unit, but here I am going to say with this particular 3 bit I can identify any one of this particular 8 memory location. Now, how I am going to do it? So, for that I will say that I am going to use a three by 8 decoder. That means, in this decoder what will happen? I will having 3 input lines. I can say that this is your A0, A1 and A2, and it has 8 output lines. So, those output lines will be connected to say M0, M1 to M7. Now, you just see when I give the input as all 0, then what will happen? That M0 will be enabled and all others are disabled. It will be 1 and others will be 0. That means, that one signal is going to indicate that I am going to work with this particular memory M0. Similarly, if it is your say 0, 1, 1, in that particular case you will find that I am going to work with memory location M3. Okay. So, to work with this particular memory with 8 memory location, I need 3 bit of address bus. So, this A0, A1 and A2 will be treated as my address bus, and through the address bus we are going to identify a memory location. So, with 3 bit we can go up to 8 memory location. Now, if my address bus is 4 bit, then you will find that we can address 16 different memory location. So, for in this way I can say that with n bits and with address bus we can go up to 2 to the power n location. Okay. Now, in this particular case, now say if I am going to store some information over here, say if I am going to store 8 bit of information, then we say that 8 bit is nothing but equal to 1 byte. I can say that I can store 1 byte of information, and this is the data that we stored in this particular memory location. Okay, that means in every memory location I can store 1 byte of information. Like that, now you see that if I am having said address bus, and here I am going to set a data bus. Okay. So, if address bus size is your 10, then how many memory location we can address? This is your 2 to the power 10 is equal to 1024. Okay. And say in every memory location I am going to keep 1 byte store 1 byte of information. Then what will be the capacity of this particular memory location? You will find that this is your 1024 into 1, or I can say 1024 into 8. Okay. This is bit, basically 8 bits, or on the other hand I can say that 1024 this many bits, 1084 by 1 byte. Okay. So, that means I am having 1024 memory location, and every memory location I can store 1 byte of information. So, total capacity of this particular memory will be your 1024 bytes. Now, similarly, if I say that in every memory location I can store 2 bytes of information, then you will find that the capacity of this particular memory will be your 1024 into 2, that is 2048 bytes. Okay. Now, in this particular case, when I am coming with this particular 10 size of 10 address bus, which is equal to 2 to the power 10, it is a 1024, and this is basically known as my kilo unit. Okay. So, in decimal number system or matrix number system, what will happen? We said 10 to the power 3 is equal to 1000, which is basically treated as my kilo. But in our binary system, or in this computer terminology, we say that if it is your 2 to the power 10, which is equal to 1024, it will be treated as my kilo. Okay. So, this is the way that we are interpreting. So, our kilo in your computer system is slightly more than the 1 kilo in our matrix system. Now, similarly, if my address bus is 20, then I am going to have total memory location 2 to the power 20, which is nothing but I can say 1024 into 1024. That means I can say 1024 kilo memory location, and every memory location we can store certain information. Or on the other hand, this is basically treated as my mega. Okay. So, first I am coming as 2 to the power 10 as my kilo. Now, if I am having 2 to the power 20, then I am going to have mega. Similarly, if I am going to have address bus of 30, then it will be 2 to the power 30 memory location. So, in this particular case 2 to the power 30 will be treated as my giga. So, nowadays you say that your laptop is having a memory of say 16 gigabyte. Okay, 16 gigabyte, you just like that. So, what does it means? That means it is having 16 giga memory location. Just remember how I am going to say. It is having 16 giga memory location, and every memory location you can store 1 byte of information. That means 1 bit of 8 bit of information in every memory location. This is the addressable space. So, 16 giga means 16 giga memory location, and in every memory location we can store 1 byte of information. So, now if you say that if I need 30 bit of information to uniquely address a particular memory location in an 1 GB memory space, then for 16 GB memory how many address lines will be required? So, for 1 GB it is 30, for 2 GB it is 31, for 4 GB it is 32, for 8 GB it is 33, for 16 GB it is 34. That means we need 34 bits of address lines to uniquely go to a particular memory location of a memory space of 16 gigabyte. Okay. So, this is the way we can identify a particular memory location, and we need the address, and address is nothing but the combination of 0s and 1, or we can say this is the bit pattern that we are going to provide over here. Now, in this particular case, if I say that I am having a 16 GB memory space, and in this particular case the size of address bus will be your 34 bit. So, here I need and decoder of 34 by 2 to the power 34 decoder. This is the simple I am saying, but we will see how we are going to organize it. So, we will have 32 line of address input. Depending on the values of those particular address input, one of the output lines will be high, and that output line is going to identify that particular memory location. Okay. Sorry, I think now you are having idea about the address of a memory location and the data of a memory location. Okay. Now, in the previous slide, we are talking about two register. One is your MAR, which is your memory address register, and second one is your MBR, memory buffer register. So, these are the two processor registers. Already we have discussed about the registers. These are nothing but the storage element, and we can store some information. So, if it is a 16-bit register, then what will happen? We can store 16 bit of information in that particular register. So, these are two special purpose register inside the processor, and these two register helps us to transfer the information from main memory to the processor or from processor to main memory. So, what is the purpose of this register? I will say that I am having this particular CPU and we have this particular main memory, okay, and say I am having these two register MAR and MBR. So, by name itself we can say that in MAR we are going to keep the address, and in MBR we are going to keep the data. Now, say if I want to transfer the information from this memory location MI, then what will happen? The address of this particular MI will be first keep in this particular MAR, and the contents of this MAR will be connected to this particular say address bus. Okay. Now, through address bus we are giving the contents of this particular MAR, memory address register. That means we are identifying this particular memory location. Then what will happen? That processor will say give the read signal. Then what does it means? We are going to read the information from memory location, that identified memory location, by the address bus, and this memory will be connected to this particular memory unit through data bus. So, in this particular case, what will happen? First, we are putting the address in the memory address register, giving the address to this particular memory unit. We have identified this particular memory location. Now, processor will generate this particular read signal. It will say that now we are going to read the information from memory. That means you are going to bring the information from memory to the processor. Then this information will come through this particular data bus, and we are going to place it in the MBR. So, we are bringing the information to the MBR. So, it is inside the processor. Okay. So, in this particular way, we can say that this MAR and MBR the interfacing register between processor and external world. And in the external entities, main memory is an entity connected to the processor. Like that, we are connecting some input output devices also. The data transfer will be similar like memory transfer. So, we have to identify the device through the device address, and going to get the data, it will come to the data bus and coming inside the processor. So, MAR and MBR are treated as an interfacing register between processor and external entity. Once it is in MBR, then we can transfer it to the appropriate register or appropriate storage element inside the processor, or we can give it to the appropriate destination. Say, if I am going to use this information for some ALU operation, then we will transfer this information to the input of the ALU. We do not have any problem. Okay. So, these two are the interfacing register. Through these two register, we will bring the information from external entities like from memory to the processor, or on the other hand, we can transfer the information from processor to memory also. Now, you just see that I want to keep this information in some other memory location, say MJ. Then in this particular, what will happen? We will keep the address of this particular memory location MJ in MAR. Now, what data we are going to store in this particular memory location, we will keep in this MBR. Then processor will give another control signal, say which is your write. Okay. It will indicate that whatever we have in the MBR, write into the memory location specified by the address of MAR. So, this is the way we are going to perform our memory write operation also. That means, we are storing information in the memory from the processor. So, that is why MAR and MBR is always treated as a interfacing register. So, this is the generic terminology, but while we are going to discuss about a particular processor, you may have some other name for these two registers, but always we are going to have such kind of register inside the processor to interface with the external world. Okay. Now, in that particular slide, when we are showing some component inside the processor, we are looking after this IR and PC also. We have got two register, one is IR and one is PC. So, IR is basically it is instruction register and PC is your program counter. So, this MAR, MBR, PC and IR, these are four registers generally we have. These are the generic register, generic name, but depending on the processor organization, we may get different name also, but these are a generic name and all the processors are having this particular four registers, and we say these are the special purpose register because these registers are used for specific purposes. Okay. Now, in this particular case, instruction register and program counter, what is the use of these things? That instruction register says basically, or we use this instruction register to store the instruction. Say, when we are going to execute a program, I said that in a simple case, I can have two phase or two steps. One is your fetch and second one is your execute. Now, when we are going to fetch an instruction, we are going to fetch from a particular memory location. Okay. Now, say at particular point, I am working with this particular instruction, say instruction 1, then next instruction will be your instruction 2. Now, what will happen? We are going to read information from this particular instruction. So, we bring it. We know that we are fetching an instruction. Once it comes inside this particular processor, so as we discussed in the earlier case, we are having MAR, we have this MBR. Now, we give the address of this particular instruction in this particular MAR, we read this information, it will come to MBR, and we know that we are now transferring an instruction. So, we will transfer this information from MBR to the register IR. We say this is the instruction register. So, we transfer this information to the instruction register if it is an instruction, if we are fetching an instruction. Then this information, whatever we kept in this particular instruction register, it will go to our control unit, maybe instruction decoder. We are going to decode this particular information. It is nothing but a combination of zeros and ones or the voltage level highs and low. Okay. So, we are going to decode this information and accordingly we are going to execute that particular instruction. Okay. So, this is the purpose of instruction register. What is the purpose of this particular other register PC? It is called program counter. Now, how you will be knowing that you have to bring the instruction from this particular memory location, and after executing this instruction, that next instruction has to be fetched from the adjacent memory location or from the next memory location. We have to keep this information somewhere, or it may be part of our bookkeeping. So, to keep this information, that instruction need to be executed in the next step. where from we are going to get that instruction, what is the address of this particular memory location, that will be kept in this particular register called program counter. So, program counter keeps tracks of the execution of the program. It contains the address of the memory location from where we are going to fetch the next instruction after completion of the current instruction. Okay. So, this is the way we can visualize it. So, these are two special registers. Instruction register generally keeps the instruction that we are currently executing, and program counters keeps the address of the memory location from where we have to fetch the next instruction after completion of the current instruction. Okay. So, these are the use of these two these two special purpose register IR and PC. So, we have seen 4 special purpose register MAR, MBR, IR and PC, and I think by now we know the purpose of these 4 registers. Now, we said we are having fetch cycle and we are having execution cycle. So, what are the steps that we need to do? Already I have explained. Now, I will simply see that what are the steps or what are the things that we need to do, the tasks to be performed. So, program counter holds the address of the next instruction to fetch, already I said. Now, processor fetches instruction from memory location pointed by the program counter. Now, program counter will point to a particular memory location, it will fetch the instruction from that particular memory location. After fetching it, we are going to increment the PC, or unless told otherwise. Generally, in normal scenario, we will increment the PC. Why will increment the PC? Why will increment the program counter? Just update the address so that next time I am going to fetch the instruction from next memory location. So, once we bring it, once we get it inside the processor, then instruction loaded into the instruction register. Now, we will load this instruction to the instruction register. When it comes to the instruction register, now processor is going to interpret that instruction and perform the required action. Okay. So, when it comes to the instruction register, then it will be connected to the control unit, maybe first part of the control unit may be an instruction decoder. Now, by looking into the bit pattern of the instruction, we will be knowing what we have to do. Say, if it is an add operation and both the operands are inside the processor, then what will happen? We can straight away go to the execution cycle and we can perform our instruction. But if it is an add instruction, but one of the operands need to be fetched from the main memory, then what will happen? Accordingly, that decoder will give us indication and we are going to get the required actions, what need to be do or need to be done, and accordingly we are going to perform this particular operation. So, once it comes into the instruction register, we will be knowing what is the next step that we need to do. So, we are going to discuss all those things in details when we are going to discuss about the designing of the control unit. Okay. So, these are the tasks that we are going to perform in the fetch cycle. Next one is indirect cycle. So, already I said that if after getting the instruction, if we know that we have to bring the operand from the main memory, then generally it will go into the indirect cycle. So, that is why this is the purpose of the cycle. So, may require memory access to fetch the operands. Okay. So, again we have to access the memory to fetch the operands. Indirect addressing requires more memory access. We will see what is those indirect addressing. Currently, I am not going to talk anything about it. Can be thought as a additional instruction subcycle. So, it can say that it is we are talking about fetch and execute. Okay. But now I said that we may have different steps also. So, we can say that we can have one fetch cycle, then I can have that indirect cycle. After completion of the indirect cycle, we can go for the execute cycle. Okay. So, it can be treated as additional instruction subcycle. Okay. So, this is the indirect cycle. Now, we are having this execute cycle. So, what is the execute cycle or what we are going to do? Now, depending on the nature of the instruction, we may do varieties of jobs. Say one kind of job is your data transfer between CPU and main memory. Okay. From CPU and main memory, so sometimes you have to bring the information from main memory to CPU or from processor to the main memory. So, this is one kind of task you have to perform, which is basically processor to memory. Sometimes you have to do another one, that data transfer between CPU and I/O module. Okay. So, this is also another kind of job. So, for that we should have the appropriate execute cycle, we have to design it. So, second one is from data transfer between CPU and I/O module. We may have some data processing also, some arithmetic or logic operation that we are going to do on that, on the data that is basically going to be used for that particular instruction or operation. So, these are basically data processing operation. Okay. So, another one we are having that control. So, some instructions are there which is going to have that control mechanism. We are going to discuss these things later on. For example, it is talked about jump. Okay. We will see how we are going to do it, but currently I can say that if you are accustomed with the C programming, I think we are having a go to statement, simple one, and we are not using nowadays, but still we have this particular statement go to get the effect of this particular statement. We may have such type of control instruction, and maybe some instruction which we are going to have, and it is a combination of all those particular above tasks. Okay. Some complex instruction we may have, or complex operation we may have, which is going to combine some of the operation that we have mentioned here. Okay. So, this is the execution cycle. We are going to perform different operation in the execution cycle depending on the instruction. Okay. So, this is the nutshell. In a nutshell, I am talking about the instruction execution, or how to execute an instruction in a computer. Okay. In basic, very simple psychology of fetch and execute, but we may have some more steps also. So, here I am talking about instruction cycles with interrupt. Now, already I talked about interrupts, big idea. So, what we are going to say? We are fetching the instruction, then we are going to execute it. After execute it, we are going to say whether interrupt is enabled or disabled. Anyway, so it is enabled or disabled, whatever it may be. If we are having some interrupt is pending, then check for interrupt. If any interrupt is pending, then we will go to the interrupt cycle. Otherwise, if no interrupt is pending, again we will come here and we will go for this particular fetch cycle and execute cycle. It will be in things, and when we encounter the last instruction or stop instruction, then execution is going to be halted. Okay. So, this is the cycles or instruction cycle with interrupts handling. So, if interrupts are enabled, then we are going to say after execution of one instruction, we are going to check whether some interrupt is pending or not. If no interrupt is pending, straight away we will go to the fetch cycle. If interrupt is pending, then we will perform the interrupt cycle, then after that we will come back to again fetch cycle. Okay. So, I think till now you have some idea how computer works. Okay. Now, we have to see the design issues of a computer, and before going to discuss about the design issues, next class we are going to just see the execution of a simple program, very simple program. Okay. Then we are going to have idea what are the different tasks or different micro tasks that we are going to perform while going to execute an instruction. Okay. So, with that I will stop my lecture today. Thank you very much.